more conscious of the fact that racism in this country is still alive, and that the number of people who hate other members of the human race for no other reason than the different color of their skin, and that the number of those who identify themselves as racist directly or by their actions are increasing in Revelation. And so that organizations like Black Lives Matter are taking to the streets to awaken those who are unconscious to the fact that we are under attack. Somebody say conscious. Conscious. The second word that I want to lift up for your consideration tonight is relentless. Somebody say relentless. Relentless means showing or promising no abatement of severity, intensity, strength, or pace, to continue without becoming weaker or less severe, remaining unyielding, unflinching, dogged, and determined, relentless. Case in point, for the past 8 years, the Republican Party, the faction known as the Tea Party, has been relentless in seeing that the first black president of these United States, President Barack Hussein Obama, accomplished little, if any, of the promises he made during his campaign. From voting against every bill he's put forth, to even refusing to confirm his nomination to the Supreme Court, they've been relentless. I believe it was Mother Teresa, though, who said that if anyone should ever be given an award for being relentless, it should be the devil. In the overall context of our pericope for tonight, if we were to make a brief review of the life of Christ, we would discover that Mother Teresa was absolutely correct in her observation and characterization of the prince of this world. But I would have you not be ignorant, my brothers and sisters, because the Prince of Peace, throughout his ministry, and particularly on tonight, he demonstrates for us what it means to be and remain spiritually conscious. I can't get no help in here tonight. For you recognize our hope and acknowledge that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness and hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Ever since the angel Gabriel's pronouncement of Mary's pregnancy with the one whom she was to call Jesus, ever since the proclamation of his birth by a heavenly host that lit up the darkened fields as shepherds watched over their sheep, and the confirmation of his coming made by astrologers who had traveled from the east because of the star that they saw that had risen in the sky. Ever since the one whom John said was the Word, who was in the beginning, who was with God, and who was God, and who became flesh and lived among us, ever since then, y'all, the devil has sought to kill, steal, destroy, discredit, cause doubt, tempt, and test the only begotten Son of God. At the onset of his ministry, we read that Satan himself came to tempt him and to cast doubt about who he was, his capabilities, and the promise of possibilities if Jesus would just bow down and worship him. But that lets us know, y'all, as Peter admonished us in his epistle, not to be surprised or alarmed at the painful and difficult ordeals that you're going through as if it's something strange. But you ought to rejoice because it's the Spirit and glory of God which is on you that's making you a target. And if you didn't have nothing, y'all, if you didn't have the goods, if you weren't God's child, if you weren't God's son, and that's about position, not gender, the devil wouldn't be bothered with you because he'd already be using you. But Jesus was another story. Even though the devil was unsuccessful in killing him in his infancy, even though we read that the devil left him, he never left him alone. But he used Jesus' unbelieving family and neighbors and even leaders in the church to try to discredit, disrupt, and disavow his ministry. The disciples were not exempt from being used. The sons of thunder, encouraged by their mother, got into an argument about who would sit on the right and who would sit on the left. There were some others who complained about the perfume that was used to anoint Jesus instead of being sold. Judas, of course, betrayed him to the religious leaders. Peter, James, and John fell asleep in the Garden of Gethsemane. And don't get it twisted, it wasn't the first time that the ruler of darkness and wickedness had gotten into Peter when he denied Jesus those 3 times before the rooster crowed. For if you remember, it was Peter who just a few days earlier had tried to stop Jesus from his impending ordeal. But Jesus, discerning that it was the devil who wanted him to not go to Jerusalem and to bypass the cross, and even more importantly, his messiahship.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, woman of God.
Sometimes, y'all, it's the devil who's offering you the easy way out. Sometimes it's the devil who don't want you to go through some trials and tribulations. Sometimes it's the devil who tries to hinder you because your trials only come and they make you strong. Oh, it's the being of good courage as they pass out the pink slip on your job. It's the now faith as you wait for the results from the doctors or the approval from the bank. Oh, it's the testing of your faith which produces steadfastness that you might be immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. And sometimes the devil will propose another solution to the difficulty that you're in or that lies ahead. That is not God's will, nor will it fulfill the plans that God has for you. Jesus had been abandoned by his disciples, arrested and falsely accused by the religious leaders and sentenced to death by the governor known as Pilate, who had found him innocent, but who at the behest of an incited, uneducated, uncaring crowd released a murderer in his stead. Having been beaten beyond recognition by Roman soldiers, a crown of thorns pushed down on his head, more blood than flesh. Jesus had been nailed to a wooden cross at the place known as Golgotha, which means a place of the skull, between 2 thieves who had received this same sentence. Surely now, the one who had been so relentless in stopping him at all costs thought that his schemes had finally paid off. He thought that this would be the end of Jesus and humankind would remain in ignorance and defeat, destined for eternal death and damnation. But Jesus, somebody say Jesus, Jesus, in his untold agony as he hung dying a shameful death, Jesus did not become unconscious. He is still conscious. He didn't ask for a vote to curtail the proceedings until tomorrow. He didn't suggest that Pilate build a wall to keep out those who were against him. He didn't ask for a blunt or some Valiant just so he could calm down or get himself together. He didn't close his eyes and hope that it would all be over. No. Jesus says something that overturns any chance of this being his end, and of even more significance, it is the determining factor in the plan for our new beginning.
Well,
and what did he say? He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. In the original Greek, we discover that the tense in which Jesus spoke these words was ongoing, meaning that he had been speaking them before now. Perhaps as Judas kissed him on the cheek, identifying him as the one to be arrested. But Jesus afforded his forgiveness then, and even for those who would later commit suicide. I can't get no help tonight. Father, what they're doing. As his disciples had ran so fast, their clothes were left in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus affords them the forgiveness that they need for their leaving him. And he prayed for them. He prayed as the crowd cried out, crucify him, crucify him. As the executioners drove the nails into his wrists and hands and feet. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. This is the first time that we hear Jesus petitioning the Father with these words. You remember, it was Jesus who spoke to the man with palsy and had said, son, be of good cheer. Your sins are forgiven. It was Jesus who told the woman who had washed his feet with the tears from her eyes and with her hair, your sins, daughter, are forgiven. It was Jesus when the paralyzed man's friends dug a hole in the roof and laid him before Jesus. And Jesus, so impressed by their faith, said to the man, son, your sins are forgiven. Yet here on the cross, Jesus did not exercise his prerogative. Even though he had said the Son of Man has power to forgive sins. Rather, as he is lifted up from the earth, he prays a prayer that causes a shift to occur in the entire universe. And if the devil had the power to precisely predict the future, he would have gagged and covered the mouth of Jesus, gagged and covered the mouth of the Word that had become flesh.
Come on now.
Jesus in his dying continues to teach us that though it may look like the devil has usurped the authority of God, don't fall for the hype. Don't quit. Don't leave. Don't give up. Don't drop out. Don't stay home on election day, but follow the example of our brother Jesus and remain conscious by praying, calling on the Father.
Hallelujah.
You know, Pastor Sandra, when I first began teaching, and even as I went on to teach for about 20 years, elementary school, right over here on 80th and Jeffrey, it was amazing to me that the little children, the kindergarten, the first and second, maybe third, fourth, up to fourth grade, I would say, children who we had to get clothes for in the winter because they came to school